Hello, my dear friends and fellow developers. Welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to continue our journey in which we are discussing different topics related to our LWC framework. In our last session, we have discussed about what are getters and how to use them in our LWC framework. We have also discussed different scenarios or different use cases where we can use getters, like when we want to achieve abstraction or when we want to compute some properties. We have also discussed one example of first name and last name so that we can see how we can achieve binding in our LWC framework, where with the help of getters, if something changes, we can render the component dynamically in our LWC framework. So today we will continue that journey and see the next topic, which is render list. So this is one of the most important topic because in our day-to-day activities, we will come into a scenario where we want to render a list in our HTML file. So let's see by what ways we can render a list. So basically there are two directives with the help of which we can render a list in our HTML or in our LWC framework, and they are for each and iterator directive. So basically, these two directives are used when we want to iterate over an array or when we want to iterate over a list. Then there is an iterator directive which has some special properties like first and last properties. So basically, with the help of iterator, we can directly find the first and last element of an list, and then we can apply any operation based on that these two properties. Regardless of what directive you use, like for each and iterator, key is an unique ID which needs to be provided in both of the directive, whatever you want to use. The major thing about key is like it helps us to re-render the component if any value changes in that list. So basically, with the help of key, LWC framework determine like whether it has to re-render or render a component or not. Let's suppose if any value changes, then with the help of key, LWC determine whether it has to re-render or not. So that's why key is very important in any of the directive, whether you are using for each or whether you are using iterator. And as mentioned, it is used to render a or it can be used to re-render a LWC component. We are using key, so that means that key is an basically an optimization technique. So that's why we have to use key, and this key will not be shown or not be reflected at the DOM at runtime. So these are some of the pointers. Let's deep dive into each directive and see how we can use this directive in our LWC framework with some example. So for each. So basically, when if you want to render a list in with the help of for each, so these are the syntax that we have to use. That for each and then in curly braces we have to pass array, and this has to be added in our nested template tag if you want to repeat any component or any list. So that's how it is. This is the syntax like for each array directive, and it has to be included in template tag. Then to access each item, then we have to use for item current item. So we have to use this syntax. Or if we want to access the index, then we have to use for index is equal to index. So these are the two things which needs to be associated for each arrays. Then if based on the scenario or use cases, you can use either for item or for index. And as we discussed, that key is important, so that has to be there. Then key basically used to have been assigned with the unique IDs. That means it has to be something like index field, which will uniquely identify whether the list is changing or not. So it has to be unique ID. So it can be like any record ID or let's suppose name. So that can be a unique ID over here. So now let's see an example. So basically we will have one contact defined in our JS file, and then we will iterate it our HTML template. So here we have an example like see you can see we have a contact with two array objects like ID, name, title, and then what we are trying to do, we are trying to iterate that this list of contact in our HTML template. So we what we are using template directive or you can say nested template. For example, template inside template. Then we are using for each contact. Contact is the name of the list which have defined as a JS file. Then we are trying to find the item. So that's why we are using for item contact. Then we are using key as an unique identifier, which is contact.id, because id will be unique in this case. Then we are using contact name and contact title. So now when we will render this component, so this is how it will look like when we will show. So basically what it will do, it will iterate over contact, and then we will find each item with the help of key, which is contact ID, and then we are showing contact name and contact title. This is how in UI it will look like. Now let's move forward and see how iterator directive will work. So in case of for each, we have to specify array name, iterator directive, but this is in iterator, this is kind of a different syntax over here. And as we discussed, it has a special behavior of first name and last name, or you can say first item or last item, with the help of which we can identify or target the first or last element of an array or list. So in case of iterator, the syntax is like iterator colon iterator name is equal to array, and then similarly it has to be inside nested inside the template tag. So here some of the important points about iterator. So basically with the help of iterator name we can access four properties. The first one is the value. So as we have our for index and item in our for loop, here we have value. So with the help of value we can target any of the array list with the syntax like iterator name dot value dot property name, and property name will be your name of the property of that list. Then we have index, with the help of which we can find the index of that list where it is currently right now. Then we have first and last, with the help of which we can find the first value or last value, and it will return true or false, that whether this is the first value or not, or it is the last value or not. So based on that you can perform your special operation or perform any additional syntax, or you can do any stuff with this four properties. Now let's say an example. So here we are using the same example which we have in the previous for each directive. So here also we will use the contact only, but with some more modification. So here we have the same contact list which we have earlier. Then here what we are doing in template, we are using iterator it contact. So it will be the access, or you can say token, with the help of which we will access these contacts. Then we have key like it.value.id, which is unique, and with the help of value we are trying to access the specific node of this list. Then as we have first and last, so basically with the help of first and last we are determining whether this is the first element or not, and with the help of last we are determining whether it is the last element or not. So now what we are doing, if it is first and last, we are just giving a list of first and list of last CSS. So it is doing nothing. It is basically drawing a line so that we can apply some styling. And then what we are doing, we are iterating over that array with the help of value.id, and then we are showing the values like it.value.name and it.value.title. So this is the CSS file. So basically nothing we are doing, we are simply adding one line, and this is how the example will look like. So these are the two ways with the help of which we can iterate over a list, like for each directive and for iterative directive. And we have also seen the syntax and some example. Hopefully this will be a fruitful session for you. If you like my content, please like and subscribe. And please kindly give your suggestions if there is any feedback. Thank you very much for watching my video. Signing off.